Hey everybody, I just wanted to delve a little deeper into just answering the question, how do we really get a great in-ear monitor mix? And want to give you guys as much help and resources as possible. I haven't done a video specifically on the tablets. I'm figuring out this is kind of hard to do because it has my reflection in it and kind of looks terrible, and it's hard to see the channel strips. So if I need to, I can zoom in and you can actually kind of see the channel strips. But anyway, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of some of this stuff right here. So on your pack, your wireless pack that you're using, to start with, I would recommend running your volume level at the dot that's just past the halfway marker. So let me zoom in here, let the camera. That's where I always set my master volume, just one dot past the halfway mark. And that just puts you in a good spot where your volume levels end up being more towards the middle of the screen here. You don't want your volume levels to all be like way at the bottom or have to run them all way at the top. It makes it where you can't create as good of a mix. It causes problems. So the first thing is that I have saved some presets for all of you guys. I have mixed in panning and the ear mics and kind of set them to a level where I'm happy with them. And I want you to be able to adjust them as well, but I've tried to do as much work for you and helping you get a great mix because I want you to be able to perform your best. I want you to be able to have a great experience and really enjoy what you're doing. But a few things that are important. One is when you're creating your mix, you've got to have both of your ears in. If you take one of your ears out, you're going to be mixing stuff at a much higher volume level. You're going to, long term, you're going to damage your hearing. You're not going to actually be able to hear things as well, and it's going to cause problems. A good in-ear monitor mix will solve the problems that you're having with hearing yourself. And I can sympathize. A lot of you using these are vocalists. I'm a vocalist as well. It's terrible to feel boxed in, and we've been working really hard to come up with solutions to help us not feel that way. I can personally attest to the fact that lately I've gotten to a place with my own in-ear mix where I've pulled one ear out to hear the congregation, and I've noticed that, wow, I need to put that back in. It actually doesn't sound as good. I'm having more trouble following the band. I am happier with my own voice and the overall mix with both ears in than with one out now. And that was not the case at all a few years ago. I was just trying to do it because of hearing damage. But we're trying really hard to get these great. So definitely while you're mixing, you need to have both ears in. I recommend keeping them in unless it's a moment where if everything's pretty quiet, like the drums aren't really playing and it's an a cappella moment, I will pop an ear out. It's cool to kind of just hear the room in that moment. But then I'll put them both back in before we get to a moment where the drums are playing, and definitely where the drums are just really loud in that moment. So I recommend putting your mix at a comfortable level. You can actually hear better when your ears aren't getting blasted. When your ears get more tired, they can start to respond in some weird ways. So try to keep your mix at a comfortable level and simple. I want to show you a little bit with the panning. I have the panning set on all of these kind of about where I think they should be. This is the vocal 4 position. So vocal 4 right here, I have them panned right in the middle. This is the panning option. If you just touch this right here, it'll pull this up and you can pan everything as far to the left or to the right as you want. So typically I would put myself in the middle, and then I'd put the other vocalist, I'd pan them equal. Typically it helps with panning to pan things in equal distance apart that are similar. So you can take like the lead vocal, and I've got them panned 30 to the left, and then maybe vocal number 3 panned 30 to the right. And that gives for like a nice even sound and makes it a lot easier for you to be able to tell people apart in the mix. And then in this instance, there's 2 other vocals, so I panned them both, one 60 to the left and 60 to the right. So they're in different, so everybody's kind of feels like they're coming from a different direction, not like they're all just right on top of each other. It really helps clean up the mix as a vocalist when everything doesn't feel like it's coming from the middle, but primarily just you. So I even took the acoustic guitar and just panned it a little bit to the left there. I have both keys channels panned 50 to the left and then 50 to the right. I have the bass and the electric panned in equal distance apart to the left and to the right. Go over here to channel B and the drums. Typically I'll pan the ride and the hi-hat all the way to the left and the right. Gives me a nice open, clean sounding drum cage. And a huge important thing is these room mics over here. So room mics north and south are your best sounding mics, and the booth is a pretty good sounding one too. I have these panned 100% to the right and the left, and these other two are panned at 50% to the right and to the left. But the way you mix these room mics is I would bring them, keep bringing them up until like the kick drum and the mix overall starts to feel kind of muddy, and then bring it down just below that. But these mics will help you to feel as a vocalist like there's some reverb on the vocals. It'll help things not feel so like they're in a box, and that type of feeling that makes you want to pull your ears out is largely because of these. So I would really try to make sure that I would always be setting these myself as a vocalist when I come into the best spot where it just gives you the best sound vocally and doesn't make all the instruments just get washy where you feel like everything's just so reverby you can't even hear when it's happening. That's not good either. So room mics, panning are both huge. If you're still struggling with your in-ear monitor mix, a couple other tips are: one, try to listen for what's too loud instead of just turning things up. We have a tendency to think, oh, since I can't hear the acoustic guitar, I need to bring it up. But if instead we think the bass is a little louder than I need, which it's at 0 right now, so it can't be actually. The keyboard's louder than what I need, bring those down a little bit. That can help us, because what happens is volume accumulates, and as we keep turning the volume up on item after item, eventually it just gets overbearingly loud and we're just frustrated with our mix. You also have a lot of drum channels on the P16, and if you don't know what you're doing, on this tablet, and that can be confusing if you don't know what you're doing. So the kick beater is the main one that I would use for the kick pedal first, because it's got the snap of the kick, and the other one's just kind of the base of the kick. The kick and the snare are the most important things you're going to need as a vocalist, because that's going to give you a feel for staying in time with the music. So I'd put those where I need them. The toms, you may not need any. You may really not need a ton of drums, because you're probably still going to hear them through your ears even with the isolation of your earbuds. The ride and the hat, you want to make sure that those aren't too loud, because they're cymbal mics, and if they get too loud, the cymbals can really be annoying. But I would definitely keep them in the mix, because those are the two mics that kind of, it feels like you hear a little bit of the entire drum set through both of those mics, so that's helpful. If you are still having trouble getting a good mix, the last thing I would recommend is I would just drop the volume on everything that you don't absolutely need. So I'd keep the lead vocal in. You want to be able to follow that person. I would keep the acoustic guitar in. You need a frame of reference for pitch. I would keep a little bit of like the kick and snare, some of the drums in there. Make sure you have the click track in there, and then I drop most everything else out. And then get to a place where you're comfortable and you're happy with your mix, and you can slowly start adding some things back in. So I hope all of that is helpful, and that's all I got. Thanks.